On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary are partners in crime in 1968's The Thomas Crown Affair. Debonaire millionaire businessman Thomas Crown, played by Steve McQueen, is no longer satisfied with his luxurious lifestyle and decides to plan the perfect heist. When the robbery goes off without a hitch, the insurance agency calls in their best operative, the ruthless Vicki Anderson, played by Faye Dunaway. What ensues is a game of cat and mouse against two people who refuse to lose. Our first Norman Jewison title of the show, Quentin and Roger discuss the mastership of the crew, how Steve McQueen was going against type, and debate the ending of the film. Round like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning on an ever-spinning reel. Next up, some days business is good, and some days it's murder. Quentin and Roger meet Philip Marlowe in 1978's The Big Sleep. In this retelling of The Big Sleep, Private Eye Philip Marlowe investigates a case of blackmail involving the two wild daughters of a general. Quentin and Roger discuss the differences between the Howard Hawks and Michael Winner versions, the nuances behind Candy Clark's bizarre performance, and just like how this film flips the genre on its head, we too break format just a bit in this discussion. And to wrap things up, Quentin and Roger reach for the impossible in ice castles. An inexperienced yet naturally gifted ice skater makes her debut in the professional world before a tragic accident threatens to dash her hopes and dreams of skating in the Olympics. Quentin and Roger discuss the small-town feel of the movie, the masterful cinematography by Bill Butler, and read a review by Video Archives favorite Jim Sheldon. I'm Gala Avary, and joining us now, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary.
Thank you, Gala. Welcome, everybody, to another exciting, hopefully, episode of Video Archives Podcast. Please, kill the buckle off. And I am joined in this endeavor with my partner, Roger Roberts Avary.
Hi, Quentin, and hello to all of our subscribers.
Hello, everybody. So let's get down to it with our very first movie. I'm making it a point this season to, I'll break it every once in a while, but I'm trying to make it a point to watch at least one film every session that I have not seen. And one of Roger's favorite directors is Norman Jewison.
Yes, he's one of my favorite. And it's funny, I haven't seen a lot of his movies. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen a number of his movies, but his early work, I haven't really seen all of it.
Yeah. Huh.
And the Thomas Crown Affair, which I had seen, but it was when I was so young.
Yeah.
And it was so long ago that when you brought it up as the movie you wanted to show this time, I was so excited on so many levels.
Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway in the Thomas Crown Affair. Suggested for mature audiences.
What do you get for a man who has everything?
I have never seen the Thomas Crown Affair, and it's just one of those weird, iconic titles. And I like Steve McQueen so much, and I like Faye Dunaway at this era so much. It's one of those cool, iconic titles that I just always kind of just missed. And it's also interesting. I can see why I missed it particularly. I don't know why I didn't see it over the course of the years, but age-wise, it's just that kind of movie that's just a little ahead of me. I remember when it was playing at the theaters. Insofar as I remember the name being mentioned a lot because it had a very memorable name. And I remember the poster, which was a big picture of McQueen and Dunaway kissing. And I remember driving by movie theaters and seeing that poster out in front. So I remember when it was playing, but I never saw it. One other time, I sat down to watch it on video. And I liked the opening credits with the Windmills of Your Mind song so much that I didn't think I was going to like the movie afterwards. I just wanted to watch the opening credits.
The credits were so good, you stopped the movie. It can't possibly live up to how good these credits are.
There are some times where the credits are so good, you know that once the movie starts officially, it'll never be as good.
Yeah.
I kind of feel that way about all the Pink Panther movies. Okay, now I've written so much about Steve McQueen, and I like Steve McQueen so much. Now it's time to quit fucking around and watch the Thomas Crown Affair. And so we did.
Yeah.
And I think both Roger and I have a lot of thoughts on it. But let me read the back of the box.
Before you read it, can I just say the box is absolutely beautiful. It's what do you call it? The shelf design?
Yeah, we've got two
the drawer that you pull out.
We've got two great boxes. We've got the original first printing of it, which is the MCA box, which sits in along with the Straw Dogs one that we did, which has its own look, which is great. And then there's the second printing, which normally on a Fox video, this is the first printing, is the square shelf. Video sets in a shelf. It's really amazing.
It's really beautiful.
It really is.
It really is beautiful. It's a deluxe treatment. They're giving it a classic treatment.
Yeah. A sophisticated and stylish movie about a bank robbery. The Thomas Crown Affair concentrates not on the crime itself, but on the mastermind behind it. Thomas Crown, Steve McQueen, is an eccentric millionaire with a genius for conspiracy. He is a patron of the arts, a connoisseur, a polo player, a gourmet, an empire builder, and a secret rebel who engineers bank robberies for kicks. Vicki Anderson, Faye Dunaway, is an insurance investigator assigned to track him down, and while they are playing cops and robbers, they become romantically involved. 102 minutes.
This movie, and I think as we were watching it, you saw my reactions to it, which were like, everything about it was so A++, and everyone who is working on it, from, I think it's Haskell Wexler, who's shooting it, and Hal Ashby, who's editing it.
Oh, it's a dream team.
Michel Legrand is doing the music for it. It's Norman Jewison. For me, like, even though he's got all this TV and all these other movies behind him, In the Heat of the Night and everything. For me, this is like, suddenly it explodes. This is like a visual film by a visual guy.
No, you're right. Other movies he had done before, 40 Pounds of Trouble, stuff like that. He's a very good conventional director of his day. This is the movie that is just an explosion of style from him. This is him really showing off as a filmmaker. He's just won the Best Picture. He can kind of do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And so he's really going to, in a way that he doesn't do in his other movies, he's going to show off his filmmaking style and being a designer. This movie is designed.
Yeah, he's showing off in this film. I mean, he comes in...
It's a great show-off movie.
To me, he'd been around since the early 50s making television and stuff, and for me, he comes into existence with The Russians Are Coming. That's the movie for me that I was like I loved that movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't Into the Heat of the Night, which is a good movie. It just, that wasn't my thing when I was young. The Russians Are Coming was my thing. That was like an exciting film for me. And so I was totally into that movie. And it wasn't until really later, it's Jesus Christ Superstar, Fiddler on the Roof. And that run that he has into Rollerball, which is, I think, such an amazing run for a filmmaker.
And is that your favorite of his movies, Rollerball?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just read that he was inspired to make it because of Clockwork Orange. And so it completely makes sense that Rollerball is because
would be a circular affection for you.
Exactly. That's my favorite film, Clockwork Orange. And so for one of my favorite directors to make an answer film to it and have it be Rollerball, it's like, I get it. It's whatever it is about those movies, it's clicking with Roger.
Yeah.
But this was always one of those movies that everybody seems to love. And actually, even since we've watched it, I've talked to several people and everyone just seems to universally adore this movie. Well, as if it's this kind of, it's McQueen right after Bullet, or before Bullet.
Well, let me interrupt here. It is interesting that I stayed away from this movie. And I think you're getting at a little bit of a reason therefore. Because what the fuck am I staying away from?
Yeah.
Everything about it. It's an iconic title. I mean, it's a title you actually like saying. There's something so cool about
Thomas Crown Affair, just as a title.
Even the fact that they came up with that for a title, I think is one of the most creative things.
Everything about this movie is creative.
It's a heist film. Okay, I made my career doing a heist film. I'm into that genre. I'm into McQueen. I'm especially into McQueen at this time. I'm into Faye Dunaway at this time. I mean, it's almost, if you're our age, so you grow up with your parents talking about it, and this is just one of those known movies. If you're mine and Roger's age, it's so kind of accepted as this classic movie that you almost feel you don't need to see it. You've heard about it so much, and since you didn't see it during the last 60 years, then you don't really feel the need to because you know it already.
Yeah. And
there's a lot of movies like that. And to me, Thomas Crown Affair was one of those movies.
And when I started looking at the movies that were coming before and after this film for Steve McQueen and for Norman Jewison, I kind of realized this movie is right on the cusp. The movies before this for Norman Jewison were the ones that I was less interested in. It's after this that I really get turned on. And literally after this film, I get turned on by him. Steve McQueen also, when you look at Steve McQueen, it's like The Getaway, Le Mans, Sand Pebbles. Those are my dad's Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
Those are my dad's Steve McQueen. And this would fall into my dad's Steve McQueen.
Oh, this absolutely
Like
does.
this is a date film for my dad and mom. And it's a successful date night film because it's a sexy movie between two sexy actors. It isn't until after Thomas Crown Affair that he becomes my McQueen for a while, which is, Papillon. I mean, that comes when I'm around 8 years old or so. Like, and to me, Papillon, we used to play Papillon as kids. Who's going to be Dustin Hoffman? Not me. I'm Papillon. And after that, he does Towering Inferno. Yeah. And so that's my Steve McQueen. And then later on, he becomes old Steve McQueen. He does the Tom Horn and stuff like that. And it's old Steve McQueen. So, and I'm phased out of Steve McQueen by then. So for me, he's Papillon. He's always Papillon.
McQueen always had a major competition going on with Paul Newman. Now, as far as Paul Newman was concerned, it's a little bit like that of the rivalry between Los Angeles and San Francisco, where San Francisco has an incredible rivalry with Los Angeles, and Los Angeles doesn't know anything about it.
It's so cute that they're even thinking that there's a competition.
Yeah, Paul Newman was not in competition with Steve McQueen at all. Steve McQueen was in nothing but competition with Paul Newman and hated that he was like number 2 behind Paul Newman.
Yeah.
And he stayed number 2 behind Paul Newman through most of the early 60s and definitely the late 50s. However, the Thomas Crown Affair was the first time McQueen had a Paul Newman size hit. This was a
huge hit.
Yeah, it was a huge hit. It was zeitgeist. And if there was something that Steve McQueen had that Paul Newman didn't have, is there was a hipness to Steve McQueen that wasn't there with Paul Newman. Paul Newman is just a straight up old fashioned movie star. Steve McQueen had a rock star, pop idol, zeitgeisty model kind of vibe that particularly spoke to young people in a way that movie stars, unless you're talking about Peter Fonda, didn't speak to young people. And McQueen knew it. And McQueen knew that his fans, his real dyed-in-the-wool fans that followed him from movie to movie, were a little younger than the average movie star out there in the 60s. And they paid attention to the cut of Steve McQueen's jeans, where the cuff fell, to his turtlenecks, in a way.
And he's aware of his style.
And he's aware of it. And he
knows that's his moneymaker.
Oh yeah, okay. And now I'll throw some love beads on top of that. My fans will like that. They'll dig that. He resisted doing Bullet at first because he goes like, I can't do Bullet. My fans hate the cops. I can't play a cop. My fans hate the cops. My fans will go nuts if I play a cop.
Yeah.
I can't play a pig.
Yeah.
And at one point, his daughter gave him some love beads, and he kept trying to have Bullet wear love beads. But it didn't fit with the rest of the wardrobe. But he loved the love beads so much that every time he was finished doing a scene, he would put the love beads on in between takes. There's really cool photos of him with Jacqueline Bisset and his wife, Neil McQueen, with him wearing the Bullet outfit, but with love beads.
This movie in particular, which is about the coolest guy in the world, like where he gets to basically showcase how cool he is and fold it into how cool this character is. It's like he's like a billionaire, basically. He's like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos.
I don't think he's that big. I think I don't even think he's Ted Turner millionaire guy, but he's a rich guy.
He's well off enough that
he's not Elon Musk, but he's big.
He's a 100 millionaire back in the day. He's got a big company. He's like,
I would say he's a junior league Richard Branson.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. You know what? Richard Branson is a really good analog.
That's a
really good analog because he's a bon vivant.
Yeah.
He's
he's handsome. He's handsome. He's a jet setter.
He doesn't sweat it when he loses.
Yeah.
You know, when he loses stuff, that's just part of winning. Is every now and then you lose, and he kind of rolls with everything. He rolls with everything that comes his way. I mean, the movie is a heist film. You mentioned that it's a heist film.
The whole concept of the story is Thomas Crown is this mover and shaker, like celebrity businessman, a tycoon.
Predicting markets and moving money and just,
a giant skyscraper, his office is the top.
I'm not even sure what they're doing, some kind of real estate or some kind of, big business.
But his little peccadillo, he's a thrill seeker. He's an adventurer, and where some adventurers, in the 30s or the 40s, maybe they go on ivory hunting with against elephants, in Africa, or they go around the world in a Phineas Fogg kind of journey. His idea of adventure is to come up with a completely foolproof robbery, like a bank robbery, and then execute it. Simply for the fun of proving that he can do it. He doesn't care about the money, just for the excitement of it all. And then the way he does it, what you see at the beginning, is he recruits 5 or 6 different guys. Nobody knows anybody else. They never know him. He keeps it secret. They do all the work. He plans it,
nobody knows. It's like a terrorist cell. Nobody knows anybody else involved.
They're like terrorist cells, but he's also like, they're all marionettes, and he's the puppet master, putting everything together. And he makes whatever money he makes, but it's all just sort of the feeling that I can pull it off. So he pulls it off. He pulls off this robbery at the beginning. The cops are stymied, represented by Paul Burke, who I normally can't stand, but he's better than he normally is in this movie. It's one of his bigger roles, other than Valley of the Dolls. And then the actor Jack Wesson, who one of my least favorite actors of this time period. It always bums me out whenever his fat ass shows up.
And he's actually not bad in this, though.
Oh, he's fucking annoying. It's the same Jack Wesson performance he gives in every fucking movie. All right. Sorry. I got derailed in my vitriol for Jack Wesson. Just even looking at him, looking at his name is bothering me. So he pulls it off, and the cops are pretty stymied and start throwing up their hands. But who doesn't throw up their hands, because they are incentivized not to do so, is the insurance company that's going to have to pay off on this bank robbery. And so in comes
the specialist,
Vicki Anderson, who is like the great insurance investigator of all time.
They've already tried, they've all done an extensive investigation, and nothing has shown up. And now finally they're bringing her in because she's like the hunter killer.
Yes. And then they bring her in as
the gunslinger.
And it's Faye Dunaway coming straight off of Bonnie and Clyde, and I think The Arrangement. And so it's like Faye Dunaway at her chicest, at her most pop iconic, having just made a sensation with the beret that she wore as a fashion icon. Well, she continues that even further. She starts figuring out that there is a connection between Thomas Crown and then some of these different robberies. So she seeks him out. She can't prove jack fucking shit, but she can get to know him.
The more she looks, the closer they get.
Yeah, but
as they play their little game.
They start playing their little game, and they start dating each other, and then it becomes apparent that he knows who she is. She knows who he is, but she can't prove it. And they just start falling more and more in love with each other. But she has to prove it. And
because she is...
Well, she's the best, all right?
But she's more than that. Because the cop that has also been trying to find out who's been behind this, he starts looking at her methods, and she will stoop to nothing. She insists on winning. She's almost a sociopath that way.
Yeah.
She's he calls her a whore, I think, at one point.
No. She kidnaps Jack Wesson's son in order to get him to...
Because she's not a cop. She's not bound by law.
Yeah. She kidnaps Jack Wesson's son to get him to confess. She can't help it. She has to prove him, because that is who she is. He has to prove that he can't be caught. So he kind of does this thing where I know you're looking for me. I know you know who I am. and I'm going to do the robbery again and dare you to fucking catch me. And I'm telling you I'm going to do it, and you still won't be able to catch me. I'll still get away with it. And then that becomes the whole second half of the film. So let me talk about the movie itself right now. The first half of the movie is really, really incredible. I don't really care for the script. I don't find the storytelling compelling. And I frankly don't find their characters that compelling. And truth be told, I don't find their performances in those characters that compelling. None of that really matters in the first half of the movie because it is truly and utterly Norman Jewison is the star. It is an explosion of style that I don't think he's ever done before and he's never done since. And I was completely unprepared for him to be this
the stylist that we see.
This bordering on American Claude Lelouch stylishness that he puts out. This is just not who he is. It's like Arthur Hiller doing something like this. It's just you're not prepared for it.
It's such a jolt after In the Heat of the Night, and even the Russians are coming, and I imagine all of his earlier work. It's such a jolt to suddenly get all of this visual splendor.
He's a normal studio storyteller director. You can say that changes when it comes to Jesus Christ Superstar, but even Jesus Christ Superstar is not about one shot after another, after another, after another. That's what this is. There's a certain kind of a show-off flairball movie that I actually have a tremendous affection for, where the director is just showing off, where it's like every shot is this great shot. Every time it's a great shot, or it's a great image, or it's a great composition. And it's all about showing it off to such a degree that almost it's like a contest. Every shot needs to be slightly better than the last one, or else the whole thing's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And films that fall into that are Coppola's Rumblefish and One from the Heart, Benet's Diva, and especially Moon in the Gutter.
Where he takes his thesis and goes further.
There's other examples.
Those movies look like the colors are going to slip off the celluloid.
And the Thomas Crown Affair itself, they look less like shots and like a series of album covers come to life.
Yeah.
Art-directed album covers come to life. Now, the thing about it is, McQueen is going against type when he's playing Thomas Crown. He is not an actor that wore Savile Row suits or a tie. It's even a little strange to see Steve McQueen in a tie. You expect Steve McQueen to wear dirty dungarees.
Yeah.
You expect Steve McQueen in a sweatshirt or to be shirtless.
Yeah.
And just hanging around in his fucking jeans and his fucking belt. All right, and his boots with his shirt off. Talking to his stunt dude. Wearing some fucking groovy glasses with his fucking cool watch.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you would expect Steve McQueen to be wearing, not business suits or polo suits or being a yacht guy.
Yeah.
As much as I love Steve McQueen, I don't think he's either convincing in this role or necessarily compelling in his performance. Jewison is treating him and Faye Dunaway like they're models. And that's what they are. They're not really actors in this movie. They are models. They are wearing the wardrobe and they are standing in these tableaus. They are literally meant to just be the beautiful people figures that they're supposed to be. It doesn't matter that there's not a single convincing aspect to either his character or her character in the entire film. They don't have to be convincing. They are a photo shoot. They are a Vanity Fair photo shoot. They are a Vogue photo shoot brought to life. The problem with all that is at some point, if the flair is not connected to an intriguing enough story or intriguing enough characters, it ultimately just seems like candy. And at a certain point, you can't have candy for dinner.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you start getting sick. And that happens to me about 45 minutes before the film is over. I don't give a fuck about the entire last part.
I can speak to that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Okay, first of all, I think there's 3 directors on this movie because there's Norman Jewison, master director, and then you've got Haskell Wexler, and you've got Hal Ashby.
Yes.
As his DP and
I
his
hear your
editor.
point, yeah.
And so the 3 of them are working together in concert, and they are doing...
Yeah, using a McQueen metaphor, I would consider Jewison, Wexler, Ashby, and McQueen as
Yeah, sure. Add McQueen to it.
Yeah, add McQueen to it as a race car and the perfect pit crew.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to. That's absolutely a good way to look at it. In many ways, I think what Hal Ashby in particular is doing. I mean, part of what Haskell Wexler is doing is he's doing this kind of candid street photography style. And yet everything looks like it's perfect.
Well,
highly stylized naturalism.
But then again, brought up to album cover pop art.
The polo sequence, for example, as we were watching it, it was like, holy fuck! It was the first time. It's as if the first time I'd ever seen polo. In a movie. Like when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's Steve McQueen on a horse, and they're doing polo, and it's a brutal game. It's an intense, hard-ass game.
It's like in Rambo 3 when Rambo plays that Afghanistanian game with the dead calf, dead calf or whatever it is.
They shoot that scene like as good as any of the stuff in Rollerball, any of that stuff, with the competency of that. I
don't give Norman Jewison enough credit as an action director, and I really should.
Absolutely, me too. The glider sequence, is extraordinary. You feel that thing slicing through the air. The dune buggy scene where
obviously Steve McQueen's favorite day on the set.
Yeah, Steve McQueen is like, hey, today, you know what? I don't feel like doing all that dialogue. Let's just go down to the beach and drive around in a dune buggy. Faye, get into the dune buggy with me. And he just hauls ass to see how, I can't imagine the insurance company allowing that.
Okay, here's the deal. Well, one, they didn't tell anybody.
They didn't tell. They just went out and shot like this insane dune buggy
And I can
sequence.
guarantee you that Faye Dunaway did not have as good a time as Steve McQueen.
Yeah, she wasn't laughing.
She's bouncing all over the dudes. I'm sure she has bruises all over her body. Her back was probably fucked up. All right,
that was a terrifying day on set for her. They are shooting the shit out of that stuff, and they're doing equal portion to the crime scenes. They're doing stuff that's visually exciting.
But that's not even weird.
All that colored smoke.
But that is what the movie is.
That's
what the movie is.
But then what Haskell Wexler is doing is he's taking that and he's adding cinematic cubism to it. He's basically saying, oh, Saul Bass, you think you know how to do so. Let me show you how to do a montage sequence. And he does this kind of cinematic cubism where they show multiple angles and multiple scenes and multiple split screens, all these things going on at once. So you can watch everything the way Thomas Crown watches everything. And this is what I'm getting at is everybody is rising to Steve McQueen, Haskell Wexler, rising to Steve McQueen and shooting, Steve McQueen doing what Steve McQueen does. Hal Ashby, in creating these sequences, he basically gives us the mind of Thomas Crown. All this cubism is how Thomas Crown thinks. And, and it's actually a really interesting idea that he thinks like Picasso. He looks at everything from every angle and he's seeing from every angle, and that's being supported by Hal Ashby.
Well said, yes.
And so there is so much of that layered on to cover up, I think, some of the deficiencies that are going on under that when they get to that second half, and I'm going to attack the second half now because it kind of pissed me off. And the more I thought about it, the more it pissed me off. The more I talk to my friends who love this movie, and I do appreciate this movie, and I love that first half like you. But the minute they got together and he made that challenge to her, I call bullshit on that as a story thing.
I couldn't take it seriously.
That is something Steve McQueen made up in the moment, and I'm sure he changed it. And I looked up Norman Jewison, who said, and I think he did 2 movies with McQueen.
Cincinnati Kid, yeah.
Yeah, Cincinnati Kid, just before this. He said, I can honestly say that he's the most difficult actor I've ever worked with. And he's worked with a lot of difficult actors.
And Norman Jewison is a guy who gets along with people.
And he's a Canadian.
Yeah.
People love him. He's like fun to work with. He's a nice guy. He's the nicest guy. You go to Gala and I went to his sugaring, which is he owns a little maple farm and he does maple syrup. And I am sure that Steve McQueen was like a fucking nightmare to deal with on this. And I feel like that whole ending is so bogus.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it makes sense because you still have the insurance claim on the first theft that occurred. It doesn't even make sense in the context of the movie.
Not only does it not make sense, it's just like the movie just started, again, like sugar, like dissolving on my tongue. All right. As it got into the second half where she loves him, but she's still got to catch him. He loves her. He's going to give her all the information that she needs to catch him, but he's going to still pull it off. I just don't buy any of it.
Yeah.
I didn't buy them falling in love with each other the way they did. I didn't buy how cavalier they were about their objectives once that happened. It's just fraudulent, and I just couldn't take it seriously.
The second half becomes fraudulent.
Yeah.
And when I start watching them basically do the crime again and repeat the shots and show that he can do it again, and then we're just watching it again, and that then they do the drop again at the graveyard, and will she catch him this time? And of course she's not going to catch him this time. Yeah. We know it's going to be the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just it actually made me mad. And then I went and I started talking to my friends, and they're like, oh, I love Thomas Crown. I just love it. Oh, I love it. Like, we want to curl up with it at night. And, I was like, yeah, but what about this ending when I basically called it as fraudulent. They're like, oh, no, that's fine. That's good. That makes sense. And these are logical people. These are one of the guys I talked to.
They probably haven't seen it in 15 years.
Yeah, he's a producer. Well, and he actually might have, because this is the kind of movie he would watch. He goes, oh, I love that movie, this producer guy. But he, of all people, should know better about this stupid ending.
And we're back, and we're joined by the lovely Gala Avary affair.
Hi. Okay, I'm actually here to talk about the stupid ending. But before I do, I actually watched this twice. So I watched it first on VHS because my VHS arrived on time.
Oh, good.
And I agreed with you guys on my first viewing about this ending. I felt as soon as kind of the sexy chess scene happened, that it was like her character just completely crumbled. She was like, what about me? All whiny. And her character, who was so strong and so cool, she comes into the movie and she's like, I know it's him from just a photograph. She literally sees a photograph of him and she's like, it's my guy. I know it's him. And she's just so awesome. And then I saw it.
She beats him at chess.
Okay, yeah, but no, wait. She doesn't. I'll get into it, because I saw it a second time on 16 millimeter at my friend Ciro's house.
Oh,
He screened it and I watched it. Just like kismet, serendipity happened. And I'm watching it on 16, okay, and I love this heist. I've never seen this movie before, my 2 viewings of it for the podcast. Okay, first off, he steals the first time $2.6 million. That would be like a $20 million heist nowadays, which I thought was very impressive. And she comes, and I love how she just approaches him, and she's like, I'm not undercover. I'm calling you out immediately. I'm in insurance, and I'm here to get you, and you're my guy. And she basically lays it out, and he's like,
She's like, I know it's you. I know it's you. I'll prove it eventually.
And I'm going to prove it. And he's like, okay, you can try. She's also really rich. This is the thing I missed on my first viewing, is that she gets 10% of everything that she gets back.
Yeah.
And she's just here for the money. And she tells that cop guy that. I'm just here for the money. I don't care. That's
why he's like, you're a whore, basically.
Yeah, and she's like, and don't put your labels on me, and I will do anything for the money. That's why she kidnaps the kid.
Yeah.
She's in it for the money. She's a crook herself.
Yeah.
She's the insurance company.
Well, she's his equal as a woman.
So she'll make the equivalent of $2 million.
She'll make the equivalent of $2 million if she gets this guy. And she's at all the charity events. She is mistaken for a model.
But me and Roger were talking about, we both like the idea of the insurance investigator, because they don't care about the right or the wrong. They only care about
the money.
The money. Yeah.
And she gets the 10% on whatever money they get back. Okay, so this chess game, at first, when I first watched it, I'm like, God, how did they make a sexy chess game? And I kind of as soon as that happened, I was like, I don't buy this, and this sucks, and whatever. Okay, on my second viewing, I started thinking a little bit more about it. They play this chess game, and she says check, not checkmate.
Right.
And he gets up from the table, and he grabs her afterwards, after pacing around. He says, okay, let's play a different game. Okay, the game I thought they were playing the first viewing was let's just go have sex. Let's just go have a fun romp. No, this is when the game actually between them begins. The second half of the movie.
I'll go that. Okay, I'll buy that.
And I'm looking at the box also, and I noticed there's quotes around the box, around the title on this VHS box. It's in her files, it's the quote, Thomas Crown affair, because she's gone to have an affair with Thomas Crown.
These are all these are holding up, Gala.
And she's here just for the money. And the part is when she's eating breakfast on the terrace with the cop, and he hands her the file. Oh, don't you want to see where your lover?
And he's wolfing down breakfast. He's
and he's like, don't you want to see where your lover?
Bradford Dillman kind of way.
Don't you want to see what your lover was doing last night? And she's like, no. And then afterwards, she's like, okay, yeah. And he gives her the report or the paper or whatever, and she's like, oh, it's that girl again. And it kind of makes her jealous. And so she goes to him, and they're at the beach, and she's like, did you ever bring anyone here? And he's like, my ex-wife. No, I mean her. No, I didn't. And she was just there to put you in touch with yourself. And that line is what tipped me off. The whole entire second heist is actually testing if she really loves him or not.
Oh no, I got that the first time.
Yeah.
But it's obscure, but it's there.
I totally didn't get it because it's when the guy brings the telegraph and the telegraph to her reads in the end, because she does betray him in the end, and she is willing to turn him in because she wants her $2 million. Like,
and not just that though. She has to. That's what I do.
Well, she's a cat. If he's a mouse, or a very cool mouse, she's a cat. She drives a Jaguar.
She can't lose.
She could become a submissive woman to him and lose, but she chooses not to.
Yeah, she chooses not to. She can't.
She plays the game for a little bit in the movie.
I don't think she chooses not to. She can't. She might want to, but she can't.
She might want to, but she can't.
Are you saying she can't because it's her nature?
Yes.
Yes. And I agree with that because like she plays it, and when she plays like the submissive girl to him, like, what about me? What am I gonna do? That's when I hate her. That's when I don't like her character.
No, it's made me actually dislike her character the minute.
When I realized that when the telegram comes and it says, I left early, either bring the money or keep the car. She has to keep the car because there is no money to bring to him. She can't go to him now because she's proven that she's given him up. And this is the Thomas Crown affair that she's just lost. They both lost. Mm-hmm. And if she did really love him, she wouldn't have turned him in and she would have brought him the money. But now she can't go to him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, here's the thing. I buy everything you just sold right now. When we're talking about a dream team making this movie, this perfect pit crew, the one person we're not mentioning is Alan Trustman, because this script really is not very good. Everything you just said is all written in invisible ink, and I buy everything you just said.
Well, I don't know if it's invisible, though. I feel like the dialogue does back it up. I feel like the...
Well, you're saying it's not up front.
It's not up front. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying you're not just making this up. It's written down, but it's just written in between the lines. But I think the film is decidedly unliterary in a way it needs to be more literary. All right, this dialogue needs to be more sparkling. It's a riddle when it needs to be a story.
I mean, I can agree with that. Uh-huh. One of my favorite things, though, also about the movie is the heist, because in heist films, it's like, do you have the heist at the beginning, middle, or end? And it kind of shapes the entire movie. And of course, we have two in this film. But one moment, like when she's figuring out like that they have never met each other and they never will again, and she draws the thing on the chalk and stuff. Mm-hmm. I actually really like that because not only will the team of robbers never meet before and never meet them again, but we as the audience never meet them before and we will never see them again, basically, except for the one guy who you can't stand.
Jack Weston,
and I wish it was like Yaphet Kotto or something. Like that was so cool, seeing him. Like if
I liked Yaphet Kotto in it, yeah.
And I swear, and I didn't see his name in the credits, but I swear if I watch it back, before Faye Dunaway comes in, the cop is talking to his whole team about like whatever. And he goes and he talks to a guy next to the window. And I swear it was Bruce Glover.
Oh,
it's Bruce Glover.
I
pointed him out.
Oh my God, because I pointed him out. I'm like, is he in the credits? Is he whatever? And I couldn't find his name in the credits when I was watching, but I didn't look it up after. But it's Bruce Glover.
It's 3 years before he plays Mr. Kid.
Yeah. It was really fun to spot him out. Well, as I said, I watched this on VHS. I have the same one that the Archives does. Except it's beat up.
Except eaten by a dog.
Yeah, someone's like, get this, stop it, get it out of your mouth. I gotta sell this on eBay.
For 30 years, it was like a dog was a chew toy.
That was that dog's favorite film, probably. Somebody loved this movie enough to keep it.
I'm sure the dog found it delicious.
I'm sure he did. This movie is available streaming all over. Just go look for it if you have to. I bought mine for $10 on eBay.
You know, it should be said that this movie was remade in 1999 by John McTiernan with Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo.
Which, oddly enough, I hadn't seen the original, but I watched the remake. I wanted to see it at the theaters, and I didn't. And I watched it on cable when it played. And I remember really, really liking it, but I don't have any memory of it now.
That's kind of how I am with that film. And it's, to me...
But I did not have the problems with the remake that I had with the original.
Well, the remake is also, they change it from a bank robbery to a painting heist.
Well, that makes sense. Actually. Yeah.
That's more McTiernan and coming also.
And I'm sure they don't shoot anybody in the leg.
I love when they just shoot the guy.
I know. I love that. And I like when she brings it up. Oh, what? What are you going to do if I do that? Shoot me in the leg. Which I actually thought was the best line in the whole movie.
I like the other lines I really like of her and him are one when they go to dinner and he's like, oh, you kind of said, and it's like, no, I didn't kind of say it. I actually directly said that and I mean it. And then the other one is when they get in the car and it's like, oh, do you want to go back to my place? Oh, do you want to hang out? Yes. Okay, sex. And she's like, yeah, sure. Like she's totally down for it. It's very funny.
I have to say, I almost enjoy you doing the Faye Dunaway dialogue as much as Faye Dunaway doing it. You're kind of channeling what you want the character to be a little bit more than what she is.
I'm channeling my Lady Faye.
You are.
To me, the difference between those two films, the McTiernan and this one is Pierce Brosnan with catamarans and on the seas. And the other one is Steve McQueen in dune buggies. And
yeah, okay.
That's literally the difference.
Well, but here's the deal. Well, there's another big difference. And the idea is Steve McQueen is acting completely, utterly against type as Thomas Crown Affair, and that's the point where Pierce Brosnan is acting
completely on type. He's
on type,
properly cast, and probably took direction very well.
Yeah, exactly,
and was very friendly.
I have an interesting thing here to read in conjunction with Thomas Crown Affair from the old porno rag, the pop star pages. All right, that we've made famous. We haven't done a William Margold or a Jim Sheldon review for a while. We have a couple.
William Margold.
We actually have Popstar Pages reviews for every movie of...
Every single movie this episode?
Yes, exactly. Not so much a review for Thomas Crown Affair, but an interesting piece. Bill Margold in 1980, on the passing of Steve McQueen, wrote an article in the November 21st, 1980 issue of Popstar Pages. Steve McQueen was obviously Bill Margold's favorite movie star, and it details the one time that they met each other. And it has a picture of them together. And you see William Margold here looking very dapper in a blazer and a white turtleneck. Steve McQueen, all rebel, no cause. Editor note. The passing of superstar Steve McQueen has prompted our film reviewers to react with diverse but equally sincere methods. First, William Margold fondly remembers Steve, and then Jim Sheldon, with his review of Enemy of the People, gently lays McQueen's career to rest. This is the William Margold part. A powerful pixie, Steve McQueen existed in his own private playground while the rest of the world grew old and stale around him. It mattered little that he was 50 years old when he died of a heart attack, as, in my eyes, he never aged from the Saturday afternoon in the late 50s when I discovered Steve as the affectionately lethal Ringa in Never So Few. Instantly emulatable, McQueen became one of my celluloid knights in dusty armor. His mannerisms and stalemates from The Magnificent Seven and The Great Escape became important pieces of my multifaceted series of alter egos. After almost a decade of being used to seeing Steve in garb and setting akin to Recess, culminating with his finest performance as the tragically lonely hero by default in The Sandpepples, McQueen dared to try to clean up his image by taking on a suave, yet to me uncomfortable-looking airs in The Thomas Crown Affair. My shock at such a drastic change of costume and pace prompted considerable boldness on my part during our only meeting at a breakfast for Crown the morning after the press screening. Walking up to McQueen, who always reminded me of a stick of dynamite that was just itching to explode, I said with a look of hurt in my eyes, "Get out of suits." Tensing for either an insult or a simple brush-off, I was warmed deeply when Steve looked me up and down and said with an understanding tone, "You too." It was as if we had just invited each other out to play, and for the rest of the brief morning, we spoke of firecrackers and motorcycles and of other things far more important than films. It should be noted that Steve did stay away from suits for the rest of his career, electing to play, for the most part, such gee, wouldn't I love to be one of those guys as rodeo riders, race car drivers, bounty hunters, past and present, and the child's most occupation by heart, profession, fireman. You know, way down deep, I suspect that Steve McQueen willed himself to be cremated in faded jeans, a t-shirt, and battered boots. And from where his ashes are scattered, I'll bet the wildest rose you've ever seen will blossom brazenly. William Margold.
To hear the rest of this episode, including discussions of 2 more movies and our award winners, sign up for the Video Archives Patreon. You'll get access to full Video Archives episodes, the Video Archives After Show, exclusive merch, and more. Head on over to patreon.com/videoarchives to subscribe today. The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avary. Find out more about the show and get Video Archives merch at videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod.